One of the most common questions I've gotten over the last few months is, how do you storytell over Zoom? What I'm going to focus on is not necessarily storytelling over Zoom, but presenting over Zoom. The stories in themselves will probably maintain the same structure, but how you present those stories is going to be slightly different. You also need to take into consideration how people are receiving you. So you need to change the way that you present yourself on Zoom to make sure that people are connecting and engaging with you. So today I'm going to talk through some of my key tips on how to do this. You've probably heard a lot about Zoom fatigue. One of the reasons why we actually get Zoom fatigue is because our brain has to work harder to connect with what people are sharing with us over Zoom or over any kind of video conferencing service. That's because the majority of communication is actually non-verbal communication. And in a world where we're not physically with each other, our brain has to actually work extra hard to make sure that it's capturing the full message. It's compensating for the lack of nonverbal communication. So, to help engage better with audiences, it's important to remember that you need to actually do some nonverbal communication over Zoom or any web services. So what I'm going to do today is focus on the tone of voice and the nonverbal communication and how that can help with storytelling. So let's begin with the tone of voice. For tone of voice, the most important thing to do is breathe. This may seem pretty obvious, but a lot of people forget about this when they're speaking. Now, I don't mean just breathing naturally. I mean taking a deep breath just before you start speaking and exhaling as you continue on. Between each point that you're making, take another deep breath. Taking a deep breath before you start speaking allows you to compose yourself. It also allows you to make sure that your voice is coming across in a strong manner. It allows you to also change your tone of voice if you need to. You've got plenty of breath to do so. You're not going to be out of breath when you start trying to complete your sentence. I've seen many people start presenting, start speaking, and not breathing at the beginning. What happens then is that their voice becomes a lot more muted. They sometimes sound like that they're out of breath by the time that they finish speaking, which lowers their voice and means that the tone of voice isn't to be found. You can't really hear it. So taking a deep breath before you start presenting allows you to make sure that you are speaking in the most impactful way possible. It's a simple tip, but it's so valuable. The next thing I want to talk about is posture. This is a key non-verbal communication tool. Now, when many people think about posture, they think about standing in front of people, whether it be on stage or in a conference room. But posture is equally important when presenting over video conferencing services like Zoom. So before I started recording this, I got myself comfortable. I got myself into a posture that gave me confidence to present to you. My shoulders are open and relaxed. I'm face onto the camera. I'm leaned in towards you. I'm trying to engage you through my posture. One tip I use is actually standing up as you're presenting, especially if it's a really important presentation where you're presenting to dozens, if not hundreds of people over Zoom. Get yourself into a power pose beforehand. Open the chest up. Feel confident. Because as soon as you start presenting, that confidence will come through in your presentation, engaging the audience. Command the space around you. Use the space around you as you stand as if it was a stage and you are presenting to a huge audience. Power pose, assert importance and assert confidence in what you're saying and what you're doing. The other thing as well is that standing sometimes helps us get more comfortable in who we are and what we're about to say. I highly recommend this. This is something that I do quite often. Not everybody has the luxury of being able to stand while they're presenting. They may be stuck behind a desk. So now I'm sitting down, but I'm still head on towards the camera, shoulders open, relaxed, and leaned in forward. Now compare that if I was to slouch backwards and to lean back in my chair as I'm presenting. Firstly, my voice becomes more dulled because I'm not projecting outwards. And secondly, my whole stance, my whole posture says that I'm not engaged with what I'm saying. So if somebody on the other end of this sees me not really fully engaged, they may think, well, why do I need to be engaged? As a result of that, they're not going to listen as intently as they would if you were leaned in. That's why posture on a call can be so powerful and something not to neglect when you start presenting. So my next tip is the use of hands. This is a crucial element of all nonverbal communication. You've probably seen me throughout this presentation use my hands. I use them as nonverbal cues in communication. They're particularly helpful in storytelling. They help emphasize points, elements that people need to remember and focus on as you're presenting. One mistake that I always see is people often present too close to the camera, which means that they may be using their hands for verbal cues, but the audience is missing out. I present far enough back so that people can actually see my hands, see what I'm doing with them, and emphasizing the points that I'm using. Now, you may also be thinking, Dave, you use your hands way too much. That is okay. It is better to show your hands and have them moving around a lot than showing nothing at all, because you're giving that extra level of verbal communication that you wouldn't otherwise be giving. I move my hands way too much, but it's okay. My final tip is make eye contact. This is something that you've probably heard for in-person presentations or how to connect with somebody when you first meet them. You may be thinking, how do you make eye contact over Zoom or any kind of web conferencing service? The key is to focus on one particular area, namely the webcam, so that you can make it appear that you are engaging with the other person on the other end. Here are just some of the techniques that I've used. One, putting googly eyes on the camera itself, making it actually look like that I'm staring at another set of eyes. For people who don't like staring at eyes, and some of us are like that, we feel uncomfortable with direct eye contact. Put a post-it note. Remind yourself to look towards the camera to make sure that you're making eye contact in your presentation. Hopefully this helps you have a better, more engaging presentation over Zoom and helps with your storytelling over Zoom. If this has helped, let me know in the comments. If you have any other ideas or any other tips that you use yourself, leave it in the comments as well. If there's anything else that you would like to see me present on, email me at dave@controllingideas.com. Have a great day.